Really?
And we are live. Well, good evening, everybody. I don't know if there's anybody out there in the chat. I can't see. Normally, I'd ask you to say hi by putting your names. Oh, William's out there. Hi, William. One of the old faithfuls. Hi, Nettie. I hope you're doing good. Hi, Sarah. Lovely to see you this evening. And that's enough to start with. They're the old faithful, so that's good. Well, welcome everybody to another Simply Spooky. And this evening we've got a special one for you. One that ever since I was a kid, because I spent a lot of time around the area where these murders were carried out, and I spent a lot of time in the areas where these murders were carried out, and different buildings and places. I've been enamored with it, and I think the world has as well. And who we've got with us tonight is a very special gentleman. It's Russell Edwards, and Russell is, for want of a better description, it's not a description I prefer. I don't know if Russell's happy with it or not, but for want of a better description, I refer to him as a ripperologist. But he's so much more than that. This man has got lots of information. He's written books. He's got a new book out, which is amazing. We'll introduce you to that book a little bit later. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce him. Hi, you Russell. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm fine. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you for coming on the show. It's a coup for us. We're really looking forward to this. So without further ado, if I could ask you just to give us a bit of information as to who you are and what you're doing. Do you know what? To ask you what you're doing and what you've done, it seems such a stupid question because you've achieved so much. And if you could just give us an outline of what you've done and who you are and where you are at the moment, please.
Absolutely. So I'm Russell Edwards. I've had a love for the East End. I've been in and around there for 35 years. I first got dragged down there for cheap bagels and cups of tea. So my mate was from Bethnal Green, and we both studied at North London Polytechnic, many in the late 80s, and it was just brilliant times. And I just obviously fell in love. Do you know what? If you know the East End, I'm sure you do. There's something magnetic about that place. You just can't escape it. There's, when you think about the Huguenots, when you think of the Jewish community and the Bangladesh, all go into that area and stay in there. As I say, I've been there for 35 years, and now I've been in London that long. I don't really go anywhere else, and I do feel it's slightly bit displaced when I am somewhere else. It's only places the West End, Soho around there, which I also love as well.
You know what it is, Russell? It's the pie and mash.
It is the pie and mash.
Also, rhyming slang.
I put a post out on pie and mash because I used to eat in Goddard's before it was the Gourmet Burger Kitchen in Greenwich.
Wow!
So we used to do Bethnal Green. If those who know that place, Metropolis in Cambridge Heath, all those years ago, still. We'd have a night out on the Lash, and then Sunday mornings pie and mash at Goddard's. I could post that because I've always had peas, mash, gravy, and pies.
Yeah.
I was branded a northerner. I said, "No, you have liquor." I said, "Well, yeah, but I like that, and that's and I still like it." Yeah, pie and mash. No, but so I just fell in love with it, and we went there for from 89 to 90 or all through the 90s. And then I watched this film From Hell. I think it was in January of 2001. And of course, Jack the Ripper film. I thought, well, we'll give that a try. And then, of course, the very next thing is, well, where is this 10 Bells pub? I've been in there, not really taking any notice. Where were these murders? Where's this story? So I watched the From Hell film on a Friday. I went on a Ripper tour on a Saturday afternoon. And by the Monday, I was on the phone to Scotland Yard to see if I could discover where all the information on the case is. Right. And they told me that the information is at the National Archives at Kew. So you need some ID and a pencil, and off you go. And that's exactly what I did. Not one for believing other people's stories, because as you well know, this fantastical story has been manipulated and misrepresented all these years by so many people that believe that they found the Ripper when they just simply haven't. So I did the research, and quickly I realized, you know what? Nobody's ever going to prove this conclusively because there is no real evidence. It's all hearsay and speculation. So the victim pictures, I've held those, the Ripper letters, you name it, the From Hell letter, not the From Hell letter, the Dear Boss letter.
Yeah.
So it sort of brings it to life. It really, this is real, this story. So I just went straight back to work. So I had care homes back then. So I had 155 people working for me. So I was quite busy. trying for a baby. So we got Alexander, my firstborn. I just didn't think about him. Then in the March 2007, it was my mum that called me and said, "Do you know what, Russ? There's a shawl for sale that was meant to be at the Forth Ripper murder scene." And I used to live in Newmarket at that point, and it's in Bury St Edmunds. So I went to have a look at it.
That's where I work.
It's Bury St Edmunds.
Newmarket.
Oh, Newmarket. I used to live in the Avenue, number 15, the Avenue. Opposite Tattersall's, the big town.
Yes,
Number
yes.
15. That was mine.
Ooh, it's a small world, Russ. We'll have to get you back up to Newmarket at some point.
I love
Have a
it.
look around.
I've got land up in Norfolk, so I've got 45 acres, and I've got a 4-acre lake up there, so I'm always up that way.
Nice.
But anyway, yes, a headache.
Sorry
Well,
about that, guys.
Okay. But that was an 8-bedroom, 7-bathroom house, and there was only 3 of us: me, the missus, and the baby. Just too big, massive house. Anyway, I went to see the shawl. Very clearly, you can see blood. Very clearly, you can see blood clots on it. And I was hooked. Very old as well. You can see, you can see through parts of it. But my then wife said, "Well, you're not having that," and that was the challenge for me to buy it. But I had to find a reason to buy this artifact that may or not be true or genuine. So there were 13 newspapers reports of like a chintz dress with Michaelmas daisies. I mean, it's big enough to be a dress. And of course, it was already taken by the time the reporters really got there. But Michaelmas daisies was the clue. Now, if you look up Michaelmas daisies, they're little flowers that come out September, about now, and if you look up Michaelmas is an Eastern and Western Christian celebration, Orthodox, celebrated on the 29th of September and the 8th of November. And they are 2 of the nights he went out and he murdered 3 of his 5 victims. And I was there and then. Now, I knew that the shawl had been in Scotland Yard Crime Museum through the 90s. So I give them a call because I'm very forward like that. And I spoke to the curator, a guy called Alan McCormack. And when I told him what I've just told you, he said to me, "Russ, that's the first bit of new information I've heard in decades, and I've heard a lot." He said, "I don't know why they do these tours, write these books, make these documentaries, make these films. Scotland Yard have always known the true identity of Jack the Ripper," and he told me the name. So I suppose anybody before me, and they start looking at the case, it's that thing just to know who he was. That's who he was. And so when he told me, I was like blown away. And I asked him, "Just tell me the story." And he said, "Well, listen, you go and do the research and see where you get with it. See if you can find me there was only one eyewitness, a credible eyewitness that could be used. Work that out, call me back and see where we go from there." And that was it. That's where my story started.
Wow,
that's phenomenal, isn't it? I think the thing that blew me away about that with the shawl, because I mean, didn't they try and discredit it some time back?
All the time.
They did, didn't they?
Everybody tries to link to get their name attached to this story. And you know what? The misrepresentation, and again, in the next book, of course, when they did try and do that, I literally kept on going to answer every single doubter's doubt, if you like. So we've answered that. Now, discrediting it, the biggest one was to do with contamination. Well, Dr. Yori Lochalainen, who, in my opinion, is a genius, and he's always been very patient with me. He managed to get uncontaminated DNA embedded in the weave of that shawl, so there's no contamination. And in fact, he took it to the next level, and he took it to a place in Manchester called, I think it was Epistem, and he did what's called laser capture microscopy. I'll say that in English. Microscopy, and I'm basically down to one cell.
Bloody hell!
On like the tiniest of tiny that we could never see with the naked eye. But I'm running ahead of myself there. You have the contamination. Now, what do you do with a shawl that you think is linked to the murder? All vividly remember each moment of this. I remember walking across from the bank with a banker's draft, walking to Lacey Scott and Knight in Bury St Edmunds, knowing I was buying that shawl. That feeling of, whoa, that it's all been like that. It's been an amazing journey for me.
What did that feel like when you actually received the article, when you went to pick up and you got it? Did that must have been a thrilling moment, was it?
Yeah, it was. do you know what it was? It was like, this could possibly be something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to be, but it could.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, that's an article that the world's holding its breath on, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. You know, I literally just put it away because, of course, I realised you don't want people to touch it. I used to get it out at the very beginning and show people it, but they couldn't touch, would never let anyone near it.
No.
And then it was, again, I got asked to take part in all these documentaries, and I kept it very quiet. So everybody was looking for the owner of the shawl, and it was me. But obviously, I still got the Newmarket papers with it in, actually. Every document, every single thing I've ever done I've still got I wrote everything down. Anyway, it wasn't until I got asked to take part in a documentary about Frederick Bailey Deeming. Now, that was a nasty individual. He murdered his 4 kids and his missus. Now, Deeming was said to be Jack the Ripper, and he said he was Jack the Ripper when he got arrested in Australia, where he was hanged for murdering another wife. But his wife used to live in my hometown in Birkenhead, and his brother-in-law used to work at the shipyard there where my granddad and my uncle used to work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all
connected.
Yeah, I've been pulled back to this story more times than even when I was writing this book. Another phenomenal thing, which I can tell you a little bit later. Anyway, on that documentary was going to be an ancient DNA specialist, a biochemist called Dr. Jori Louhelainen. And I thought, that's the one I'll do, because if I get to meet him and he can do the work, then, you know what, we're away. So I met him, and I said to Jori, again, in my novice stage, many years ago, about 13 years ago now, I said, could you solve this in about a couple of days? He said, Russ, it actually took 4 years, by the way. He said, all it'll be is for telly, for show, and that's all it will be. And that's what came out. But then afterwards, I let him have the shawl for a day to analyse it, to see if there was any link whatsoever with that shawl and the 4th murder scene, that of Catherine Eddowes. This is what Jori said to me. There's a huge, I mean, this is about 9 foot in length and 2 foot wide. It's a big garment, but you can scrunch it and you can put it in your pocket.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it's not bulky in any way. This is what he said. He said the huge blue section, which is about 2 foot by 2 foot, he said that's covered in arterial blood spatter consistent with slashing. And we knew that Catherine had had a throat cut.
Yeah.
He said there's a big cloth, very easily seen with the naked eye. He said that's evidence of split body parts that would take a world expert to forge. And further down on the shawl, there was a spray or a deposit of semen. Now, we knew that Catherine Eddowes had no money, and we knew that she was arrested on the night she was murdered, but she was released to her death, if you like. So we thought it was her shawl, and we thought that was a customer. So we ignored the semen. And again, that's where that story started. But what the problem was for Jori was actually to get uncontaminated, because we don't know where that shawl had been for all these years. We knew it in the sea chest, the previous owner, who is the great-great-grandnephew of actor named Simpson, who was on Finian duties in Mitre Square on that night.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's and people say, well, you can't prove that. Well, in this book I have, so the new book I've literally, so I've nailed everything. Anyway, so it took him quite a while to devise what's called like this vacuuming system, which he did. So that's pioneering for him. And I know that the Nordic police use his technique now. So he got uncontaminated samples, and then he got DNA, which means it's not animal blood, it's human blood. So human blood, somebody has had there's been slashed blood all over that top bit of the shawl, which for me was like, oh my God. So he said to me, and that was about a year. I took about a year. So in this story, it's extreme patience, which is what Anyway, he said, I've done the hard part, you do the easy part. And I said, okay, so what do I need to do? He said, go and find me a direct female descendant of the murder victim and get a sample of DNA from her. Now you can imagine, all right, I just go to the corner shop. Something. And in fact, I was in touch with her today. Thankfully, sometime I was with her last year, and I said, you don't realise how important you are to me. Name's Anyway, on TV thing called Jack the Ripper Found My Past, and Karen was on it, and she's a direct female descendant of Catherine. So I got in touch with her. She did thankfully give me a sample of her DNA, and then 6 months later, Yari asked me to go to Liverpool, and we filmed it to document my reaction, because there was a direct match with the DNA that he'd extracted from the shawl and the great granddaughter of Catherine Eddowes.
She's the 4th time great granddaughter, wasn't she? Or the 4th generation?
No, so she's the great granddaughter.
Yeah, wow.
That's
Did she know that? Or did you trace her down her lineage, or she knew that she was a direct descendant prior to
the
that?
documentary Found My Past, because they told her.
Oh,
That's how she knew, and that's how we used it. Existed.
But she worked for the police, didn't she? So she understood what you was going through, and she didn't realise that you was a crackpot. She could tell that this was serious.
Very, very good point. Because you can imagine you're sitting there at home watching Coronation Street, you get a call from a complete stranger saying, "Oh, well, I need your DNA to prove the murder of your great grandmother." You know, that's really think about how I approached Karen. And you know what? She's so lovely, and so just a truly wonderful human being. There was no problem at all. And again, these moments. So sending her off the swabs for samples, and I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks. And of course, you're in that, tapping, finger tapping her, and she'd just gone on holiday, and it was just things like that. So anyway, that when we got that match, that was one of those really, really pivotal times in my life that I really won't forget. And as I say to you, I remember being there on that day, so it's wonderful. So we thought, well, we've cracked it. There's the Eddowes shawl. Let's write a book. And again, even I've had an email from my agent in the last hour. Now he owns the Ripper Diary, but the James Maybrick Diary, and even he knows that the diary, it's not genuine, as in it's not anything. It's not written by Jack the Ripper. It's just a very fantastical piece of work, and it's an amazing piece of work.
Yeah.
But Ripper. Anyway, my agent said to me, "You're going to have to go further than this, because there's an industry that makes a lot of money out of the murder of these women, and they'll be hell bent on stopping you."
Yeah.
Look on Wikipedia. That's written by the owners of one of these tour companies, which is complete lies. And we'll get to that soon anyway. Just so you know, the person who work with me specialises in defamation. So I'm so looking forward to taking all the money off them. Anyway, sit here, just bide my time. So anyway, my agent said to me, "You're going to have to at least prove it's not a modern day forgery," which was a brilliant piece of advice, because what Yari did, was he did an analysis to prove that it wasn't screen printed. So I don't know if you know, screen printing was a way of putting patterns. But it was it predated 1910, so we knew the shawl wasn't modern. So we did through one of Yari's contacts called Dr. Fayez Ismail, a wonderful chap, a perfect teacher, because he taught me everything that I needed to know for this. And it was mass spectrometry he conducted on it. So again, as I'm saying these words in just a blasé manner, what mass spectrometry does, it just like separates all the elements of any sort of piece of fabric and tells you exactly what its consistency is. But the other thing, what Fayez could do, Fayez could tell you where it was made and when it was made.
See, that blew me away. That
that's amazing.
That just because I said to you, you won't be able to get away with sneezing in the wrong area soon.
No,
because the detective work and everything else and all the information, the DNA and that, you just can't get away from
advancing,
it. Which is good.
That's that. You can't, they can tell anything now. So
yeah.
So of course, you imagine me, this is all a brand new world for me, but a really gripping world that we were in. I want to say at this point was there was only a few of us that knew that what we were doing. So there was less than half a dozen very close-knit people. Karen was one of them, and we were literally keeping this very hush-hush. And we knew that there was a Sky reporter, a bit like that guy chasing, the Hulk in the 70s, and the reporter.
Yeah.
A
bit like that, it felt. So I remember Karen says, I've just been approached by this guy from Sky. What should I do? I said, just say nothing. You know, you can't say anything. You can't prove anything if you don't say anything. Anyway, so this is what Fire said to me. Obviously, this changed the whole ballpark. He said, Russ, the first thing is this blue dye is water soluble. If a street prostitute wore it, all the dye would have run.
Mhm.
Catherine Eddowes was out in the streets in the rain. There's no way. So that's the first thing. The next thing he said, it's an Eastern European garment. I had that confirmed by Christie Sotheby's, the Huguenot Society, and a silk shawl expert called Diane Thalman in Switzerland. So I didn't just do nothing. I really did the work on this. Anyway, so the dye comes from St. Petersburg in northern Russia. This comes from Eastern Europe, and as you well know, the Ripper came from Eastern Europe with his family. And then he told me the game changer. He said, this is pure silk. This would have been owned by an upper middle class family. Now I know, I think I mentioned in the book, but they were well off. I can say that.
Mhm.
But the family were well to do, and I've got all the evidence to say what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We said it would have never been owned by a prostitute. So we're thinking, well, I remember vividly, I was sitting in my son. I used to have my little desk in the corner of my son's bedroom with no distraction when I used to write. So I used to write 1,000 to 2,000 words every single day on this. So anyway, so if it wasn't Catherine Eddowes' shawl, then what's it doing at the murder scene? Well, it was at the murder scene because it was left there by the murderer.
Mhm.
Because placed her kidney on the shawl. Now we got a kidney cell from that. And you may ask, well, how do we know it's a kidney cell? And what Yori said to me was, cells are different sizes, and the cell is that size. So straight away, that was that. And we knew he took a kidney. So all of a sudden, that realization of, well, it's the murderer left it there. And you're thinking, okay, so why did he leave it there? And that comes back to something only me. Obviously, I say only me. I've done a lot of things that's only me. But so go back to the Michaelmas connection. The Michaelmas states on the 29th, when he went on the night of the 29th, he went and murdered Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. Now, on Wikipedia and everywhere in Google, it says the 30th of September, 1888. But actually, if you go to the archives in Kew, it says the 29th.
Oh.
So just so you know, and I've got the evidence of that. So the police records show the 29th of September, not the 30th. So that's the confusion some people might have and say, well, not really, because it was the early hours. So if you go out tonight, you're going out on the 16th of October.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he left the shawl there to let the world know the date of his next murder, which was the 8th of November. And it was exactly that.
Wow.
That's why I left the shawl there. So all of a sudden, if that's the case, if the shawl wasn't hers and it was his, then the semen on the shawl could have only been left by him, which brings in I say brand new, but a whole new element to the story, because there's no evidence that these crimes were sexual, and yet with the semen on the shawl, that proves that.
Wow.
That was going to be my next question. Was that then changed the whole persona of the Ripper murders completely? Because is he getting a sexual kick out of it, like the other serial killers of today, if you like?
Yeah.
Well,
there's more to this that needs to come out.
Yeah, and that's when I've written this graphic novel, that allows me the freedom to actually put that in how it was. So they say, well, did he do that? I'm not going to say the word, but did he put that on there before the murders? Well, going to commit a murder on that high level, and it's a sexual kick for a serial killer such as him, he's going to orgasm doing that.
Yeah.
So if we could get DNA from that semen, we've got DNA of Jack the Ripper.
Yep.
And again, as I say this to you, I mean, it's many years ago when we did this, but I wonder if you can imagine that moment.
I would be able to contain myself if it was me. It's like, what? I might have,
I promise you, I've done the same on the other case that we're not going to talk about. And these are moments that only I've had. And it doesn't matter the cost to me personally to do this, to say this, and to have this is a legacy that will be there in history, and say 3 generations down the line, someone's going to point out, you know what, actually got it bang on. It was him.
Yeah.
You were able to match the DNA.
Yeah, well, this is the next bit. Yeah. So the thing is, we needed to get again uncontaminated DNA, and Yori used the help of a sperm head analyst called Dr. David Miller. And there's only 8 of these guys in Europe at the time. So David managed to. Yori got the uncontaminated sample, then David Miller extracted the cells, and we could get DNA. And
Wow.
the date I found that out was the 12th of December 2012. A really weird time. Anyway, I was nearly crashed the car. What Yori said to me was, well, the next thing you need to do is go and dig him up. Now we know he's buried in East Ham. I know exactly where he is. So I approached the United Synagogue to get permission to dig him up. And again, speaking to the guy that did that, I'm telling him the story I'm telling you. Imagine picking up the phone to listen to what I've just told you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did. And they flatly refused. They do not want him dug up. Now, the thing is, he's on his own. All his family are buried in a different cemetery. He's completely on his own. And all the family with different names, as in different surnames to him, brothers, they're all somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what we'll do is let's dig him up and put him over with his family. They're not interested. A complete no. You're not digging this guy up. And it's interesting because the guy I was working with to do the exhumation, he said, they're lying because we do this all the time. This is like 200 quid. Just there's 200 quid, get it done. And we move the body with the family. So that's what he said. But this one was a definite no. So that stumped us a bit.
Sorry, Russell, do you think they knew something?
Of course they do.
Yeah, of course.
So they knew what the background before you even approached them.
Oh yeah. In fact, he said he took photos of the headstone and the grave for me. I said, at least I'll give you the photographs of the grave. So when I put a photo on my page of the grave, everyone goes, "That's not Generera." Well, it is. So anyway,
would that not indicate there's a whole community out there that knows
the
story behind?
Yeah. Well, that's what I've just unravelled in the next book. That's the point, but I'll get to that. So anyway, Yori said, well, if you had a sister, if you could find a direct female descendant of her, I can do the work that way. And he did. And it took me 10 months to find her. So we got the sample, sent it to, I drove it to Yori, that one. The other ones I posted from Karen, drove it to him. And then that was the October, in fact, now in 2013. So 11 years ago. So then the race was on, and the descendants, she was in the conversations with us and the progress and everything we're doing. And then in February, the third Friday in February 2014, at 8:30, Yori says to me, go and check your inbox. And there was a direct DNA match with the descendants, Aaron Kosminski, the semen that we placed at the time of the murder.
Wow. How did you feel when you got that news? What come on, Russell, tell us your emotions. What did you do when you got that news? What did you do next, and how did you feel?
Okay, so that's my heart.
Yeah, I've got chills now.
Okay, I'll tell you exactly what happened. The wife at the time, she went, well done. She went to bed. The only she knows she's never been bothered by this story, you know. She just wanted to make sure that she got a haircut the next day. So I was like, cheers, thanks a lot, love. The people that I've been working with, as I say, there's only a handful of them. Yori was on, he wasn't taking any calls.
Thank you.
Everybody was on voicemail. So I had no one to share this with. No one. So I opened the front door of where I was living at the time, and I just mouthed out,
I would.
That's what I did. And I didn't know at the beginning when I got the shawl. Just because I linked the murders to the dates. That's where it's, and obviously you can see the blood, you can see it all. You've got to be an idiot to say, well, that's not blood or that. Anyway, it was just that moment, that just true moment of elation that I've done something that, again, I didn't know the world would come against me. But at the time, it was just, you know, that well done.
Yeah.
So
But
that's what.
you're part of history now, Russell. I
Oh, yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
in years to come, people are going to be talking about the Ripper, and they'll also be talking about you and the work that you've done to.
Well, I hope so.
Probably for 100 years.
Do you know
Yeah.
what? Looking at this story and the whole way it's set up, and it's been like for me, it's been like looking at a set of dominoes. It seems almost like it's been predestined.
For me,
Yeah, it's like you were
Yeah.
put there at that. You went that university or that university, whatever it is now. You're in the
Yeah.
right place. You followed that down. The police officer at the night collected that shawl. That was
Yeah.
kept for posterity or whatever. Then you end up that you go into his granddaughter. It just seems, and she works for the police. It all seems.
I blame your mum, Russell, because if your mum hadn't have told you, it wouldn't have happened.
No.
It would have done. In fact, I bottled it on the day of the auction. There's a guy I've got great respect for. In fact, I spoke to Paul Begg yesterday. So Paul Begg, Donald Rumbelow, Martin Fido, Stuart Evans. They're, I would say, the godfathers of the research of this story, and I have the most highest respect for these men. Stuart Evans was at the auction, and again, I'm very much a bulldozer, straight through people. I want to speak to you, mate, and I'm speaking to you. And I stood next to Stuart Evans because I thought he was there to buy the shawl. And I was standing on his shoulder, and of course I was very well to do back then, and I was ready to outbid him, so he doesn't know it's me standing on behind him, and he never bid.
Wow.
So, oh no, what do I do? And in a blink of an eye, it was over. I'd already made my interest to the owner, the guy, the auctioneer anyway, that I wanted it, and he kept looking at me, and I wouldn't bid. And it was on the Monday. It was a Saturday. On the Monday, I called and said, "Is it still there?" He said, "Yeah." I said, I'll let me pay him and I'll take it. And that's how it happened. But
Wow.
yeah. But there's so many links to this story. And okay, Walter Sickert wasn't even in London at the time, some of the murders. He wasn't even here. His DNA could only prove that he wrote a Ripper letter. There's no, that's it. So Patricia Cornwell wasted all that money. Get nowhere. But Walter Sickert he performed in New Brighton, where I come from, at the Floor Pavilion, and I've performed on that same stage. James Maybrick lived in the same. Not James Maybrick. Frederick Bailey Demon's wife lived in the same road as me now. But the big one, which I'll tell you now, I tell you what, we haven't done a documentary on this. Everybody wanted to do a documentary, and I can tell you the deals I've had. They're massive. And each one sort of just the door closes for some reason. And I'm like, okay, not to bother, not to worry. Anyway, a woman from Poland, from Kladowa, or spelled Kladowa, where he comes from, Kosminski family, she emailed me, contacted me, and I spoke to her. And she gave me the complete family tree, all the way back to 1810. So for example, Kosminski's granddad was a butcher, just so you know. And that's
was he?
He's a butcher, yeah.
That's quite interesting.
I know.
Yeah.
Most of the family were master tailors, but he was a butcher. Now I gave that to, I know the descendants of it's actually his great grandniece who I'm in touch with. I've known her for 10 years now, and I sent her the family tree, and I was absolutely, she was totally enamored, and she sent me a whole load of photographs of the family. And in those photographs was her dad, great granddad, his older brother, in Masonic robes, sitting in his lodge. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking, why didn't she send me that 10 years ago? Because I would have answered this 10. All of a sudden, they were Masons. So I go to the headquarters down in Covent Garden and blow me, there he is. He was in the Masons.
So he would have been protected anyway.
That's exactly it.
So is that why the police would have washed down the writing on the wall, painted the writing on the wall in Brick Lane?
Well spotted. So the Jews are the men who not be blamed for nothing.
Yeah.
That walked off under the instruction of Sir Charles Warren, actually, which cost him his career. Actually, JUES is nothing to do with the Jews of the East End. JUES is the name given to the 3 assassins who murdered the Grand Master Mason.
Wow.
So, believe it or not, little old Russ sitting here with all these revelations, nobody's really got that. And lo and behold, I solved it. And that's
Yeah.
in the book. And you think, oh my God, that was so basic when you realise the connection. But there's more. So the Jews are the men who not be blamed for nothing. Now, if you just put yourself, the benefit of being someone like me is I think differently to most people. I don't
Yeah.
think there's the answer. No, it isn't. Let me think about this.
No.
So if you're going out to commit murders, you're not going out with chalk in your pocket thinking, you know what, I'll go to the corner shop, I'll get a box of chalk, and I will use that to write that because I know I'm going to write it. That's not going to work.
No.
What profession uses chalk? And I only knew this. I'll tell you how I knew this because when I was a kid, I used to cut out teddy bears for the family, my mum and my step.
So Taylor, yeah.
Taylor, yeah.
Look, Taylor's chalk. And guess what? His brothers were tailors.
Wow.
That's why he would have had the chalk in his pocket.
Where do you think he learnt the all the I'm going to say the word wrong now, the
Anatomy.
anatomy. How did that come in?
In
Do you
his
think?
asylum record, his occupation was hairdresser. Hairdressers and barbers had anatomical knowledge, so barber surgeons.
Oh.
Yeah, they did everything back then.
Yeah. So that's how he knew, and he would have definitely had to have some. He wouldn't have been able to do. So I ask people on the tours that I do. So if you think about, just take a step back, which is as I say, this is how I work, and put yourself as if you're going to commit that murder. Imagine what you're going to do. You're going to cut what he did to Annie and Polly, the first two, and Catherine. He cut the throat right down to the spinal cord, so there was no connective tissue left. Okay, it's really gory, don't you think? What do you think's going to happen to you physically? You're going to go.
Yeah.
You're going to the smell of the iron, the smell of body. You know, you're sticking your hands in and pulling out body parts and intestines. Oh, you know, just go. Well, I'm used to that. Must have been used to that. Forget everything else. Just think what you do. You'd be hurling up in the corner. Well, he didn't. So he would have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You smell. So
Yeah. The coroners tried to fight against that because, of course, everybody would have hit the surgeons at the hospital, the Royal London Hospital. So they tried to poo-poo the fact that he had anatomical knowledge, but he did. So it's things like this. Another revelation I can give you. There's lots of things happening to me right now. Something else we've proven which is very significant. We can't disclose that yet, but I'm gonna just give you this as a thought. When you look at the facial, I would say disconfiguration. That's not the word I want to use. I would say just the facial onslaught that he did to Catherine Eddowes. Inverted cheek, V's on the cheeks, eyelid cut off, ear cut off, nose cut off. Now, it's quite fiddly, and he would have only had 4 minutes to do what he did, because he did a lot more than that. What's quicker, a knife or a pair of scissors? Cut.
Scissors.
So there's a strong part of me, I know somebody else with scissors later on in 1889, strong part of me that thinks that he did that with scissors.
Yeah.
Which, when I put my page, when I put a knife grinder out, I'm actually referring to that in a simple way.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, because didn't he remove something and place it by her ears for Jolly? The scissor thing would make sense.
That was in the Dear Boss letter, and in fact, that probably preempted him doing that. That was the Dear Boss received on the 27th of September, dated the 25th, the murder's on the 29th, and it says, "I'll clip the lady's ears off just for Jolly," and he would have, been made aware of that, because 2 days after he went out, thought, "I sod you. You're pretending to be me. I'll show you who I really am."
Yeah.
And that's what he did.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Mad, isn't it? You can't get your head around it, can you, really?
Do you know, living the story as close as I have for so many years, this is just, it becomes so obvious, unravels. So where he lived, so when you look at the first and second murders, we had the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, very strong police presence in those streets where I walk when I do my tours, the old streets. where he lived was Greenfield Road, now Greenfield. It used to be Greenfield Street, now Greenfield Road. That's actually 10 minutes from the murders. But the night of the 29th, when he murdered Elizabeth Stride, if you come out of his front door and you turn left, you cross over Commercial Road. The very next street is Burner Street, where Elizabeth Stride was murdered, 500 yards from his front door.
You're back again.
It's mad, though, isn't it?
Crazy. Isn't that crazy? Right on your doorstep.
Yeah. And then, of course, it takes... So the thing is, once I established where he lived, it was a case of timing from the front door to see roughly how long it would take per murder and how long he would get back and which direction he went. You know, and it's been as I say, I spoke to Paul Begg yesterday, and he said something that only he and I would understand. And he said, "You know what? I look through my career, and we get to here where we've actually nailed it, and you think, well, actually, now I want to do something else." You know, I mean, in my 70s talking about Jack the story that I've done it now.
Mm-hmm.
That's why number 2 case I've done, which is, as I say, I can't really disclose anything yet, but I've got a brand new cold case, which I've found a way in on, the same way with the Michaelmas. I'm dying to get started, and it's a cracker, and it's in America. So that's that I'm really looking forward to. And somebody somewhere might recognise the fact that I have this gift to solve these murders in this way.
Definitely.
That guy, let's follow that guy. And so that's really that. Yeah.
Do you know what, Russell?
Amazing.
I would like to see you on tour in theatres, talking about this more, because I went, and I'll be totally honest with you, I went to this bloody thing recently.
Yeah.
On serial killer exhibition, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a load of rubbish.
I've heard that, yeah.
Absolutely rubbish. But I saw the Jack the Ripper reproductions of Letters, and then I saw you popped up. I thought, oh, I've got to get Russell on. I want to know the truth now. And we've got it. Just a plain and simple.
I believe in that exhibition they spelled Myra Hindley's name wrong as well.
Oh, they did, yeah. And they got dates wrong to do with the Yorkshire Ripper. These glasses were from this date, but he died in this date, and yet he wrote a letter to his friend on this date. Is well, I thought he was dead. You know, it was.
How can they get things that's ridiculous?
I know.
Yeah, no,
it's very amateur.
That's what we're planning to do. Obviously, the authenticity of what I do and what I've done. And again, the great thing is there's no speculation and nothing to hide, because everything from here has been thoroughly researched and confirmed before I even say it. Yeah.
Well, Russell, we've decided we are coming to do a Jack the Ripper walk with you and nobody else, and we will arrange it at a time when you're not very busy, and we might bring a crowd with us, and we will go into this even more, like while we're there, looking at these areas of what happened and actually sort of drinking it all in. But we're going to ask people in the chat, have you got any questions for Russell? You can put them in. You can ask him anything you like, but if it's too personal or too rude, he might tell you to naff off, you know. Or I will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you got any questions? The American sitting there very quietly, being a good boy.
I think I already asked most of my questions that I wanted to know, like the natural DNA and stuff like that. Because that's what interests me, is the whodunit. How did you link everything together? You know, when he answered all that. So,
well, what I can give you while people are making their mind up what to ask, we didn't just throw this out to the world. We actually went to the coroner. It was Her Majesty's coroner. And we presented the case. So we prepared a case for the High Court on an official level. We presented it to the coroner, and the coroner said, based on this, she would support us reopening and having the case to have a second inquest to name it.
Wow.
But that came from the coroner, who knows what they're doing.
Here's a question for you. Lorna wants to know, how long have you had an inkling who it was?
I can tell you exactly. It was March 2007 when I called Scotland Yard, and it was Scotland Yard who told me who it was. Scotland Yard have always known who it was.
Why are they loath to divulge it then, to Richard? Russell Rudd, why are they loath to let it out who it was? Is there stipulations on it that they can't mention him, or
They're not loath to let it out at all. It's just
really?
being ignored.
Oh,
So what happened was, so the head of CID, Robert Anderson, and a guy called Donald Sutherland Swanson, Sir Donald Sutherland Swanson, every single paper passed through Swanson's hands. Everything on this case that man saw. Now, there was a guy, his surname's Robinson, that tried to bring a book out, which is just complete, pardon my French, but bollocks.
yeah.
And he really laid into Swanson unfairly. Now, what Robert Anderson wrote was a book called The Lighter Side of My Official Life, which was his memoirs. In Donald Swanson's copy of The Lighter Side of My Official Life is what's called the Swanson Marginalia. Now, Anderson says that they knew who the Ripper was, and he said he was tempted to say who he was, but he thought it's sort of telling tales out of school.
Right.
Plus, we know the Mason connection. That's really what it is. But that's not divulged. And also, the guy that wrote the Dear Boss letter that gave the name Jack the Ripper was an enterprising journalist, and they knew who that was as well. In Swanson's copy of that memoirs, he actually says the name of who the Ripper was.
So if Scotland Yard are happy to let it out and release it, there's obviously somebody there at the top still pulling the strings not to, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's conjecture. I don't know, but what I can tell you is, now I know they were Masons. I'm not surprised.
No.
But it amazes me how they bring in like royalty, like the royal surgeon or whatever it is. But they would put him in the frame and quite happily out him.
But they haven't. No. Everything you see about these suspects that aren't suspects, there were 3 suspects: Michael Oster, Montague John Druitt, and Kosminski. That's it. Nobody else was ever named officially, ever.
Oh.
No, there's only 3. Everybody else has all been just figments of people's imagination.
Conjecture, yeah.
Yeah.
It's all complete nonsense, all of it. So I'm actually doing a Ripper timeline, which I enjoy doing. The Prince Albert Victor, he wasn't even in London at any time of the murders. As I've said, Walter Sickert was in France at the time. Sir William Gull, he was a 72 after 2 strokes. Any eyewitness, they said the guy was in his 30s at the latest. So a 72-year-old man doing a runner, Netley and the carriage, completely made up.
Yeah.
Brooke, what a great story, but nothing to do with this. The Cleveland Street scandal, which was a gay brothel, where I know Oscar Wilde was caught. I know that we'll get to the other guy, Tumblety. So Tumblety, was he the quack doctor, was the murderer? He was gay.
Oh.
He was arrested in a gay brothel on the 7th of November in 1888.
Yeah.
We know about serial killers. We know that they murder in their sexual, obviously, brackets, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? So that just gets rid of Tumblety straight away. And each suspect, it's a wrong word, each made up fictitious suspect that's anyway, I'll say this is why it's not him. James Maybrick, as I say, we know that James Maybrick, the handwriting doesn't even match his. So if you look at the Ripper diary, you look at Battle Crease House over in Egbert, not far from where John Lennon lived. A builder, found a diary. It's signed by Jack the Ripper. This guy then gives it to a guy in a pub in Wallasey, where I know, because I lived in Wallasey for a while, and then mysteriously a watch turns up in a pawn shop round the corner. You just go, do you know what, mate? Pull it together. We're not that stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What my agent wants to do is just prove that the date that the diary was written at that time. The only sad thing about that is the guy who had the diary has sworn an affidavit saying he wrote it. So James Maybrick, absolute nonsense.
Nonsense.
Thing on, and they latch onto these people. I'm sitting at a conference, which the only one I ever went to, which I presented at, and this guy goes, "I'm a Maybrickian," and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so sad." It's just so sad, when it goes. You title yourself as that, and I thought, mate, you need to get a life immediately. But you go through all of these the same,
Laura wants to know, was it a bit of an anticlimax when you got the confirmation, when that confirmation came through?
No, not at all. What we've done is we've worked, and again, I put that post out last week. A High Court barrister that works in the Royal Court of Justice, that's where his cases are. He's been working on a case with me for 5 years, and he's got a PhD in biochemistry, so he understands the science. So he bypasses anybody trying to claim a name to this, to say it's not true, it's this, it's that. He's seen it, coroner's seen it, it's been passed. He actually went on record and in the book, and this is his statement. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to read it to you, if I can find it. And it's quite significant. And this is, just bear with me.
He's got the book there.
Yeah.
He's got the book.
I've got the book, the new book.
Interesting. We'll see that.
Yeah, I'm going to look at that in a minute.
Yeah. So he basically says, oh, by the way, there we go. There, can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a Masonic record of his brother becoming a Mason. But further down, there's a Wolf Abrams, which is his brother, and an Alfred Abrams being made Masons. Alfred Abrams gets kicked out of the Masons literally just after Kosminski goes into the asylum. So that's what I was going to say on that one.
That's a bit weird, isn't it? They're maybe using a different name.
Well, there's this thing about an unmuzzled dog, and brother Wolf, because Kosminski was arrested. The unmuzzled dog was actually Wolf Abrams' business partners, who's the guy that puts the statement in to the asylum record saying he was eating bread out of the gutter, and it was just nonsense. But even then, they testified. He said he doesn't use that name in the UK; he uses the name Abrahams. But anyway, that's another story.
Crazy.
This is from.
Robert,
This is
Robert's
so we.
got,
Sorry, go on. I was just going to read this. Really.
go on, read that.
So this is a High Court barrister, and he states this, and will state this in a High Court. Have the newly available DNA analysis of blood and semen samples obtained from a shawl known to have been found at the scene of the killing of Catherine Eddowes on the night of the 29th of September 1888, which now positively links Mr. Aaron Kosminski to that killing, had been available to the police at the time, it would have been justifiable for the coroner to charge and then seek to have Mr. Aaron Kosminski prosecuted for both the murder of Catherine Eddowes and the 4 other known victims of the so-called Ripper murders that occurred in London in late 1888.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like a slam dunk, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's interesting when someone goes, it's still Lechmere, you know.
Robert, was leaving the shawl a mistake, do you think?
It's intentional, isn't it?
Well, of course, he wanted people to know the date of the next murder. You know, and that's how he did.
Clever.
That's what
Nicola, I'm sure you're not going to get the answer, but we'll ask him.
Mm-hmm.
How much did you pay for the scarf at the auction, Russell?
Can't tell you.
That's fair enough. His wife might find out and she'll go mad, so no. Don't.
Yeah, so
If I don't do anything with it, equivalent amount to go and waste on clothes and makeup. What I can tell you, the day that Gary told me, when I found out who it was, on February 2014, I'd spent £750,000 at that point.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yep, I spent more than that now.
But when something's that tempting,
Yeah.
you've got the money.
I was very well off, and it was just a case of this is a project I'm not going to let go of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know what, Russell? I was thinking, you've got the Newmarket connection. We
Yeah.
should all have a syndicate, buy a horse and call it the Ripper
There you go.
and run it at Newmarket.
Did you know? Before I bought the house in the Avenue, I used to live in Etheldredder House, which was an Arab prince's house, and it was at a maternity horse hospital. Where they breed horses.
Yeah.
When I used to write, obviously I wasn't. What was that then? That was before I was doing the Ripper stuff. The rocket, the foals of the Rock of Gibraltar used to go past my window every day.
Wow.
Wow.
When I was selling the house in Newmarket, I had a knock on the door. It was Lester Piggott.
Yeah.
Who spoke like this, as you know. I give him a tour around the house, but of course it's 5 stories high.
Yeah.
So when we got to the second floor, he realised it was just too big.
Oh.
Yeah. Lester Piggott, big honour to
Yeah.
him, you know.
Well,
Was he deaf? He was deaf, wasn't
Well, he heard me.
he? Yeah. I thought he had a problem with his hearing, which is why you just speak
Yeah,
quiet.
with impediment. Yeah.
right, before we want to thank you for coming on, Russell, and we've kept you
thank
for
you.
an hour. But before we go,
Yeah.
I know it's a very big thing that Jack the Ripper has been named, but can we make it as a dedication to all of his victims, and can we name all of his victims?
Yeah.
And because that's important, and I know that you're doing a lot of work for the victims by getting these plaques.
We are. So
Amazing work.
a gifted street artist called Ants, Keep It Street, if you look that up. He's a wonderful man and a gifted artist. We're doing something very big down in the East End in the next 6 weeks, I would say. We're not only doing a tribute to the victims, but to sort of take away, it's called Jack the Ripper Retribution, and Ants, Jack the Ripper Retribution. And in that, we're now going to be naming the victims, and we're going to turn it on its head. That this isn't about Jack the Ripper anymore. Jack the Ripper never existed. The Whitechapel murderer named Kosminski was the murderer. And the Ripper. So we're trying to dispel that. And this is about the victims.
Yeah.
The victims were Polly Nichols or Marianne Nichols, Annie Chapman or Dark Annie, Elizabeth Stride or Long Liz, Catherine Eddowes, also known as Kate Conway, and Mary Jane Kelly, also known as Mary Jeanette Kelly. The 5 victims of a madman that was let loose and murdered them in 10 weeks during a period known as the Autumn of Terror.
Yeah. No, let's put a thought out for those poor girls
Yeah.
that suffered in the way that they
Make it
did.
about them.
And let's not make it light, because they would have suffered and they would have hurt and they would have been in a lot of pain.
He strangled them and they were dead before he did any of his atrocities.
Yeah. Even that in itself, it's just it's not good.
I'm with you. I've lived it, as you know. Right, so do you want me to just?
Yeah. Can we have a look at your book? We need to look at this book.
So this was the first one printed, and obviously it's signed to my son and my partner. We literally, when I got the first batch in, they went day one, and now they're doing a reprint. So the print comes out week after next. But Naming Ripper, the definitive reveal, everything. So every answer to the questions from the first book is answered in here, and everything answered. The audio book is available from tomorrow.
If they want to get a copy, where's the best? Can they get it from you signed if they want a signed copy?
Signed from me, you can get it from the jacktherippertour.co.uk.
Let me write this in here.
Yeah. And if you want to follow me, it's Russell Stephen Edwards with a PH, or the Jack the Ripper Experience. That's my Facebook.
Excellent.
Hang on, I've only just got the first one. I type really slow. Can they email you on the Jack the Ripper tour.co.uk? They can get in contact with you.
The link to the site. They message me through there, so it's fine. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, I am virtually getting booked up on private tours nearly every day now, so
that's fine. Russell, thank you so much for this. It's been such an enlightening
Will you come
evening
back and talk to us
brilliant
again
to speak to.
at some point?
Thank you.
We would love to have you back. And hopefully I'll have some nice photos of Newmarket to show you.
I love the market.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
and
a
best of
mad
luck
place to live.
with all future adventures as well, Russell.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to them.
Yeah.
I got married in the Bedford Lodge, if you know where that is. That's where I got married to. The Bedford Lodge in Newmarket, if you know it.
Bedford Lodge.
Yeah,
No,
it's if you go up to Exning Way, if you're going up to
Yes.
past the clock,
Yes.
straight up past the Gallops on the left, the big house,
Yes.
right, the Bedford Lodge is on the left.
Ooh.
That's where I got married, yeah. I'm sure it's
Oh.
yeah.
I'm up the Gallops all the time, walking the boss's dog, and
That's
it's
what-
amazing what you find there.
All right, listen, thank you very
Shoes galore. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Russell.
Russell. Thank you so much.
thank you.
And we will
Thank
will
you.
speak soon. Take care and good luck with everything, Russell.
Thank you very much. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you,
Take
Russell.
care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye to
Bye.
everyone in the chat. Thank
That
you
was
for
amazing. Hope you
It
enjoyed
was,
that.
wasn't it? Right, everyone. We will speak to you. We are back next week. You're back tomorrow, Dan, aren't you?
Back
Yep.
tomorrow. Me and young Eric and young Timothy.
Tune in to find out what they're talking about.
We'll be talking about
Right, I'm off, everyone, and we will catch up with you soon. Take care.
Bye, guys. See you later.